hands together for director Guy Ritchie. Up next, we have our Genie, Will Smith. Our Mena Massoud. In the role of Jasmine, we have Naomi Scott. As Dalia, we have Nasim Pedrad. As the Sultan, we have Navid Negahban. Please also welcome production designer Gemma Jackson. And welcoming back to the stage composer Alan Menken. You don't even need a mic, Will. He doesn't need a mic. Beans.
Yes!
Everyone.
One more time for Alan Menken, inside of Dalia. Love that.
Entire childhood.
Yes.
Before my eyes.
Yes, goodness.
So beautiful. I'm gonna cry at some point, so I'm just gonna get it out there.
Will's got tissue for you. He's always got tissue.
Don't worry, Guy will cry before you do.
Yeah, Guy's our first responder in terms of crime.
Emotion.
He always kicks it off.
You're the
Well, I have no idea where I got this reputation from.
You got it from crying on the set every time you saw a good performance.
What do we call him, Will? Will, what do we call him?
That's Cry Ritchie.
Cry Ritchie.
Cry Ritchie.
Well, I did want to say, many of you have been on this global press tour, getting to connect with fans from all over the world. What are you most excited about for people to see?
Guy.
Thank you very much, Will. I suppose it's the entire process that, in the end, is what you're left with in terms of a sensation by the end of the film. So I would say it's how you leave the cinema. So it's hard to be specific about exactly what it is that you're supposed to derive from it, other than a sensation which can only really be encapsulated by a very positive version of being uncynical. We want people to leave with a sense of positivity and hopefully a sense of freshness and all that sort of stuff. But really, I think it's a question of how it is that you leave the cinema.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mena, you stepping into the role of Aladdin, what are you excited for people to see as far as this film?
I'm especially proud of the representation and the ethnically diverse casting that was put together for this. It's not often you can go to a movie theater and see all people of color represented like this. It's certainly something that I was missing in my childhood. So I'm proud of the cast and the casting that Guy and Disney put together. So I'm excited for little boys and girls to go see people that look like them on screen, man. That's what I'm proud of.
Yeah!
Woo! And Naomi, Jasmine was our first Disney princess of color. She also has a new song in Speechless. What was it like doing that scene? And also, how do you feel that song resonates today?
Oh gosh, where do I start? So, Speechless, written by this guy over here, Alan Menken, Pasek and Paul. Yes.
Ben Pasek and Justin Paul.
Yes, who La La Land, Greatest Showman, exactly.
Wonderful.
Incredible writers. So, the fact that they wrote a song and I get to sing it, first of all, I was like, wow, that's already surreal. But also then when I heard it, and just the words and the lyrics and how timely it was, the message behind the song and the idea of not going speechless, that everyone has a voice, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter what your gender, your voice matters. And speaking out against injustice matters, not just standing by and being a spectator. So yeah, that day was very emotional, right, Guy?
Guy Ritchie crying back to
But it was really emotional because you know, I wanted it to feel raw in the, you know, and I wanted it to feel like it's what she's going through in that moment. And we did some of it live as well, which was a different type of challenge. And yeah, you know, it's out there. The song is, for me, it's like, it's the world's song. It's like, whatever it will be. And whatever people take from it, they will take. I'm just obviously very blessed to be the person to kind of embody it in the movie.
I did want you to know personally that people were emotional in our theater during that scene. Yes, people were weeping and sniffling and full-blown sobbing. That was my friend Kat.
Full-blown snogging? Oh, well, that was a different movie, girl.
Navid, I had a question for you because growing up watching Disney films, so many of them have a father-daughter dynamic element to them. What was important about this Sultan story arc with his daughter?
I believe the most important thing was for him to show how much he appreciates her. I mean, I think every father, no matter what, they see a princess in their little daughter. And we had a discussion with Guy. We were sitting and we were talking about the kids. And I have to say something about Naomi. There's a princess inside her. I never forget, we were on the set and we were working. Some of the ADs, they were a little bit distressed and they were yelling at the background actors. And this girl took the mic, went over on the balcony and said, "We can be nicer to each other, can't we?" So the princess is inside her. I never forget that day. Do you remember the day that we were on the balcony and somebody down there was yelling? So,
I'm gonna go with.
I was me that was yelling, by the way.
God, that was weird.
I didn't want to mention it,
wow.
but
No, that's so cool. I don't.
but truly, it's just finding your inner magic, believing in yourself, who you are, and what you are is special. There's nobody else like you, and I think the film represents that. I mean, Mena, he discovered Aladdin inside him, and it was beautiful. The whole journey was an amazing experience.
My next question is for Nasim. So Dalia is a completely new character that the world has never seen before. Also cool because we get to add another prominent woman of color to our Disney roster. So since you didn't have a character to base this off of, how did you go about bringing her to life?
Well, it was so fun because it was, I think, all the joy of creating something from scratch, but then watching that intersect with this story we all know and love. Which I had so much respect for coming into it. I'm a 90s kid, so for me, Aladdin was like golden age Disney, and to echo what Mena said, I'm so proud to be part of the most diversely cast Disney movie of all time, I think. And it really, that film resonated with me as a child because it was the first time I saw a Middle Eastern protagonist, you know, in a major motion picture. So to get to be a part of that and play a little fun role in being Jasmine's friend and handmaiden, and especially under the guidance of Guy, who's so collaborative and fun, and every day you're like, oh my gosh, how like he puts the scene up on its feet and it turns into a whole fun new thing that you wouldn't have necessarily even seen on the page. It was just such a blast. And we got to spend time together. A lot of my scenes were with Naomi. We got to spend time together before we started filming. There was just such an instant camaraderie and friendship that I think hopefully translates into the dynamic of the characters.
It does. You all had such a beautiful chemistry together, all of you.
She won't say it, but like, she kills it in this movie. I think also, like, she does so much improv because she's such an amazing writer as well. She was just coming out with, like, I was just laughing the whole time. I couldn't keep it together. But, like, she literally, I think she brought more to the character than I think anyone could have even imagined for this role. And, like, literally, she just annihilates it.
I heard that sometimes y'all had a cut for giggles. Yes, I stopped for giggling. My next question is for Gemma. One, congratulations on Game of Thrones tonight. I know you have a huge... Congratulations on that. So I know that that Agrabah, being that it is a port city, it is influenced by many different cultures that you brought to this film. What was the most fun part of researching?
Is that right? No. The most fun part of researching, I think, was just throwing everything up in the air and letting it settle and thinking about the parts of the world that we wanted to explore for our kingdom and our land, and letting it all kind of gradually come together. And as the different demands of the film grew, then different parts of that set grew, and creating a world for this fantastic bunch of mad people. And was my job.
Did you keep anything? Did anyone keep anything? I'm kind of really curious about that. Do you ever keep anything from the set?
I've got a bat from the
a bat?
Well, Jafar's study, which actually was probably the least seen part of the film. I made these bats that went around. At one point, I had some mad idea that they'd be floating around in some scene, and so I've got them in my garden.
I've got more of that set than you can imagine, actually. Oh yeah. It's like basically got the whole of Agrabah. I gradually clawed it off Disney as time went on.
Yeah, I always try to keep a little piece of wardrobe. Like for me, whatever reason, the wardrobe has a really great value. So I always, I tucked a turban on the way out.
They weren't small, those turbans. No, just on the point that Gemma was saying. Gemma and Alan and the rest of the team. What became fun is that everyone came to the Spirit in no small way, because when Will came and he was number one on the call sheet, his positivity sort of flowed all the way down. It started from the top and went down. And then there was an incredibly positive spirit throughout the whole process. And actually my job was really to encourage them to be more of themselves. So everyone had a degree of improvisation that which was just natural to them. And as I said, my job was just to encourage more of that. But people like Gemma and Alan, what was conspicuous to me is really that they are still like children, in the best possible sense, in the fact that they're still incredibly excited about their jobs. So Gemma gets very excited about what it is that she does.
I thought you meant that they take all your money and eat all your food.
So working with them is a tremendous pleasure for me, because it's like you're all kids still. And so from Will's point of view and from the actor's point of view, they were all having a tremendous amount of fun. But from Alan's point of view and from Gemma's point of view, everyone's like kids, and no one's cynical in that sense. And I give that most of the credit to you there, Will. Will is not cynical, and by the time you've been doing what Will's been doing for 30 years, it's very easy to become jaded and cynical. And actually, no one on the set was cynical. So Will said it, but for me, it was the most fun creative process I've ever been through.
Yeah, I was saying Disney magic is real. This is my first Disney movie, and there's something that Walt Disney did in the design of these stories, that at the core of these stories is something that shocks the inner child within you and forces it to come alive and smile and appreciate the moment. So for me, that coming into this, first starting with fear. Definitely started with fear. What Robin Williams did with this character was he just didn't leave a lot of room to add to the Genie. So I started off fearful, but then when I got with the music, it just started waking up that fun, childlike, silly part of me. And like Guy was saying, this was the most joyful experience of my career.
Yes, that really came through too. It's just so, I was going to ask you, because you did so many musical numbers, and rapping, and acting, and dancing, and juggling, and all this. Was there any one particular song that you resonated with the most?
Well, the song that got me over the hump of, yes, I can play Genie, was Friend Like Me. I went into the studio the first day and I really wanted to play with it to see if I could add something to it. And literally 30 minutes in the studio and starting to play with it and finding that in that 94, 96 BPM range, we were playing around in there. I think it ultimately was a little bit faster than that, but that 94, 96 BPM range is right old school hip hop. So I grabbed the Honey Drippers, Impeach the President, which is a really classic old school hip hop breakbeat, and I had them throw that breakbeat under there. And I messed with that, and I messed with Eric B. and Rakim's I Know You Got Soul under Friend Like Me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm home. And then I started playing with the hip hop flavor, and then the Genie was really born in my mind from the music. When I understood once I played with Friend Like Me.
Yeah, it was great, absolutely. I mean, I said to a lot, I liken myself to an architect when I designed a house that I was going to live in. And you threw a hell of a party in that house. Yeah. And I just loved it. It was just, once he did that, I just go, just back off and let him do what he does, because he's so good.
Well, I would love a Spotify playlist of like all of your influences that went into this. If we can make that happen, that would be great.
Got you.
I do want to make sure that I open it up to press. For the remainder of this time, I see the first hand that was up right here in the white shirt.
Well, congratulations. It's amazing considering what you just said, coming up against the history of Robin Williams' stamp on this. So can you talk a little bit about what you look for these days with your career? Guy just said, after 30 years, people can get jaded and you're not. And you've got this, and then this very strange-looking, serious sci-fi movie coming a month later with Ang Lee.
Yeah, I took a couple of years off, and I guess I had sort of hit a ceiling in my life. I had created the things that I could create in my career. I was getting to the end of my wisdom with leading my family, and I kind of got to a point where I had a bit of just a collapse of my life and creations. So I took a couple of years off, essentially to study, to study and journey spiritually. And Aladdin was really my first sort of coming back in and, seeing if my heart was even still in this kind of performing. And what I discovered is everything starts with, what am I saying to the world? How does this piece contribute to the human family? Can I go around the world with the ideas that the movie represents, and can I teach and preach these ideas in good conscience? And with Aladdin, checks all of those boxes. I love the idea of Genie, and one of the things that I related to in Genie is that, the Genie has shackles, right? So the Genie has these, spectacular powers, but he's shackled. Like he is a prisoner of his spiritual fate. And that's sort of how I felt with Will Smith. I was sort of shackled by Will Smith. And in these last couple of years, I've just started finding my freedom, where I'm getting free of Will Smith and I'm getting more comfortable being me. So Aladdin was that first step back out. And in terms of Gemini Man, that was like, we were not going to talk about that yet, but just the ideas of that, and there's some deep concepts under that, and really it's just about my beliefs. I'm going out into the world and I have a big voice, and people look and people listen, and I just want to make sure I'm saying things that improve and contribute to people's life and growth and joy and evolution.
Well, I watched your inspirational Instagram stories, which have gotten me through many a day. I'm so glad I got to see one live and in person.
Yeah!
I see a hand, the two right here. Yep, it turned to 5. Right in the second row. Yeah. I want to make sure I'm getting everybody. Yes.
Hi, my question is for Guy, and this is a resolutely Disney film, and yet I was also struck by how much of a Guy Ritchie movie it was. And I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the things you thought you brought to this production that no one else could.
I don't know about the last bit, but you'll be surprised how familiar I am in this territory, considering I've got 5 kids. The oldest one's 18, which pretty much means I've been up to my eyeballs in Disney production for 19 years. And also by sort of family demand, it was about time I made a movie that we could all watch together. So Aladdin ticked the box in the sense that it was a street hustler and I was familiar with that territory. My wife is a big Disney file, and anything to do with Disney princesses is high on her list. So it was really a question of demand by the family, and frankly, I was just ready to do something in this world. And then, of course, it's very hard to be objective about your own work, but inevitably, what happens is that you leave an imprint upon it. Some clever director once said that the lion's share of directing is casting, and I think that's true. And I think once we got our little team together, then we were all on the same frequency, and it didn't take us long before we all dialed into that frequency. And then it just all worked from there, and it all came out very organically, actually.
I think the beautiful thing that Guy does on set is that he creates a sense of family and community, and everybody feels free to create and bring their take on it.
I heard an idea in the Alchemist about a shepherd leading from behind. And that's a really beautiful approach that Guy takes. It's like the first 5 or 6 takes, he doesn't say anything, he just watches. He just lets you do it, and you do it, and he sees how everybody's choices are naturally, and he watches, and everybody gets excited, and we're playing, and we feel like we're making it, and then he comes in and just gently starts to guide, everybody back towards what he wants, and he's wildly collaborative and open, and it's a rare combination to be that open and that definitive at the same time. It's a very difficult thing to do, and he has mastered that very well.
I think another, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I'm being very kind here. The thing is I'm not really sure what I'm doing, and I'm hoping they're going to do it for me.
Another example, though, is perfect example might be like One Jump Ahead, right? One Jump Ahead is one of those songs in the animated movie which is almost choreographed. It's one jump ahead, red light. It's very sweet, very clever, very stagey. And Guy, I know, wanted to get to the truth underneath it, to go, who is Aladdin in this more than just a guy performing, as Guy said, jazz hands. And so we tore that song apart. We tried it this way, we tried it that way, to get the swagger into it. And he challenged me and the whole music team to go to a different place. We went to some pretty extreme places, and then when we came back to, it feels like One Jump Ahead to me, but it feels very real. So whatever happened in that process worked.
I think a lot of it too has to do with the fact that Guy is truly the least rigid filmmaker. And I feel like when I watched the film, so much of the joy that is there came from his spontaneity and his comfort in finding something on the day, which I would imagine is a challenge for a movie on this scale. I mean, you look around and you're like, the money is being spent. There are so many pieces in place, and it's really easy to just be locked into an idea you had of something. But he was so open to finding new things on the day, like you just mentioned, that it made it so fun for us.
I see one right there. Is that Laura? Yeah. Like, I know my...
Hello. So what I love about the movie is that it, came from an origin from East Asian, South Asian, and Middle Eastern culture. And I really love that you guys were able to put that all together in this film. How important was it to tell this tale, not only from the animated motion picture, but also the origin culturally to keep it authentic?
I feel that's coming my way.
I have an opinion if you'd like me to go first.
Yeah, you crack on.
Right. I think it is critically important to be able to pull stories and colors and textures and tastes from around the world. I think that in this particular time in the world, that kind of inclusion and diversity, it will be a critical part of turning our connectivity, because we have more connectivity than ever, but transitioning that connectivity into harmony is going to be really critical. And I think these kinds of interactions in these types of movies are a powerful global service. So it was critical and important to me. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East also, so this one particularly was critically important in that way.
No, I think you've done it very nicely.
I see in the second row, right here in the end. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, all of you. Number one, I'm thrilled to see a very jiggy Genie.
That's actually the first time I've heard that. Good, that's the first time.
Leave it to the gal from Philly.
There you go. Definitely repeating that one.
I've got to ask Gemma, such a beautiful job with the production design, but what you had to do with this film, it takes it to a different level than what most production designers have to do, because we're not just looking at eye level. You have to worry about the overhead levels and the view from the world above, looking down. What were some of the challenges and your considerations in your production design to give us the bird's eye view and the street view?
That's quite difficult to answer. I think what happens is you start to create your whole world, and it takes me over as much as anything else. So the world just kind of grows up. I think you have to realise that also I was working very closely with Chaz Jarrett, who is the visual effects person. So we kind of worked together on some of the overhead worlds. We built models, we worked it all out very sort of mathematically as to how you'd see everything. But I think the world, it just kind of grew with the script, with the characters, with a lot of the dance sequences needed to be very seriously choreographed, and I had to work very carefully with them. There'd be 10 yards before they jumped something, 20 feet before they'd fall. It was all kind of requirements. It was like, it's very hard to explain, I don't know what can help me, but it kind of grows, they work together, so I'm visually hanging on to my vision and not wanting to lose any element of that. Meanwhile, they all have to do all these extraordinary feats, so we all work together, really. I think if that answers any of your questions.
Well, what happened also that is spectacular, and as an actor, and it's interesting because we've never done an interview or anything together, so it's interesting for me to be here with you and hear you discuss those things. The ultimate compliment from the actor's point of view is we were transported to the time and place. And that's what happened when we walked on that set. When you walked through, it was in the textures of the walls and all of that, and the stairs were real. You could go up and go out onto the rooftop, and all, it was a powerful way to transport the actors into the emotions and the smells of the time and place.
Thank you, Will. I mean, I have to say I enjoyed every single moment of it. I've never had such fun as I had building that world, actually.
Let me get this, I can get right on the end.
Good job for you and for everyone. 3 wishes from this movie. What were your 3 wishes in your life?
from the movie. What was, you know, it's funny. We were having this discussion. It's it will be wildly underwhelming. But we were talking about that, and I would have one wish, and my one wish would be divine understanding. And that's the thing that I've been finding I just turned 50 this year, and that lack of understanding, confusion, is the mother of fear and violence. So for me, I would absolutely wish for divine understanding to be shared with all. I think that understanding is the seeds of peace.
I think that, I can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4th row, hands still up right in the middle.
How can you even see?
I know, I'm trying to make the effort to, I got you.
Thank you. This is for Naomi Scott. You're a singer anyway, and the Disney style is kind of quite specific. I just wondered how much adjustment it was to sing in that context, and what kind of the differences you felt the word to explore.
So I feel like, I don't know if I'm looking at you or not, I'm kind of just like, I'm trying to interact with you, but like, it's a good question. I think that number one, you're kind of singing in character in a way, but it's interesting because this was a discussion, because obviously the accent is this mid-Atlantic kind of weird thing, so obviously I sing, how I naturally sing is a bit more kind of in my own voice, you know, so definitely I had to put on some type of voice, but I think, yeah, like it was a challenge, especially like the singing live thing as well was I really wanted to do it, but again it was a challenge. We had like an earpiece, and I was basically singing a cappella in this like quiet room to myself, like a crazy person. Literally, that's what it felt like. But yeah, I think that's how I viewed it. I was like, I'm in character, you know, but I definitely did want it to. I did want to put on a musical theatre voice as well. Like, you know, I was talking to Alan about like I didn't want it to feel like performancey or like. I still wanted it to feel like you're kind of going through what she's going through, and again, like I naturally tend to sway more in the kind of R&B world in terms of just my own music. So I maybe added a little bit of that. I don't really know what happened in that booth, but I think it was a mix of both. It was kind of like singing in character, also bringing a little bit of my own flavour. I guess, well, you know, similar, to what you kind of did. So yeah, that's how I viewed it. I don't know if that answers your question.
And to add to that, so every aspect of that song kind of raised a different bar that we had, because once that song was in place, we go, okay, now, how do we set that song up? How do we create the moments when she would actually break into that work with the story, and organically we lead into it. So we divided it into those two parts. So first part is, I don't want to remain speechless. Second part is, I won't remain speechless. And then also, yes, it does have a much more of a pop sort of feel to it. So we had, you know, if we saw screening like we did, like, I don't know, 8 months ago, it's not yet feeling like in the score. So we did a lot of work, number one, threading themes in, and taking that pop orchestration, but adding the colors of Aladdin in. And, you know, it was nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, it actually really works. So relieved.
We don't know about this girl. What's she gonna do with it?
And your R&B and pop inflections make it's perfect within the context of the story and the arrangement and all that. It's exactly the right balance, I think.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3. I see a hand right here in the end. I just see phantom hands. Maybe like fifth or sixth row. Yep. Whoever wants it. Yep.
Fight for the mic. Go.
Hello. This question is for Naomi and Guy. So Princess Jasmine kind of has always been female empowerment. I believe she had a line in the original. I and not a prize to be won. So can you just talk about a little bit about the enhancement of this female empowerment for Princess Jasmine in this film?
Let's go first. Me? You? Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's a wonderful thing when you have a vision for a character and you think, oh, I'd love to see, Disney do this with this character, and it aligns with the people involved. It aligns with what, with Guy and our producers. For me, I really think it was a natural progression. I mean, Guy said something in Oman, which I thought was really great. He was talking about equality of challenge as well. So the idea, I'm stealing your thing now, the idea that, Jasmine needed even more of a challenge in this movie as well. And as I said, it's a natural progression. The fact that she wants to become the leader, I kind of just want people to walk out and go, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? She should be the leader. And as opposed to it, it's not this thing that's been shoehorned in. It just makes sense. And she's a human. For me as an actor, my main thing is, okay, how do I humanize her? How do I give her depth? And so those things just came naturally. Guy, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So you're right.
I took what you said.
No. It's valid. But what was conspicuous, if there was anything that looked like there could be some evolution in this narrative, it was that there needed to be a voice given to Jasmine. I mean, Aladdin had been given enough challenges to get on when Genie had his hands full, and the most conspicuous character thereafter was Jasmine, who was arguably passive in the original, and it just felt like there was an obvious space there that we could have worked on. And as Naomi just said, it really, to me, it was about equality of challenge. Because there's no point banging on about something unless you can back it up. So, not only did Alan come up with what I think is the best song in the film, but to illustrate that particular point. But this is the bit where I got the reputation of being called Guy Ritchie. It is because Naomi was a tremendous pleasure to work with. But I don't want this to turn into the sycophantic show, which is slightly in danger of becoming that, but Naomi as a performer embodies, she's very light of spirit, but when it comes to actually committing to a performance that is profound, she can immediately switch into that mode, which to me is the best of everything, because you can talk to a human being before they perform, and then as they perform, they deliver at 100%. So she was wonderful at doing that, so actually so was everyone else. But in that particular case, Naomi was spectacular. But it's that particular part of the scene I'm very proud of, really, and as we all should be, because we all worked on this together. But she earns her right there, and to me it's not really about gender as much as it is about an individual standing up for themselves at a pertinent time, and then they can illustrate that point, they can articulate that point, and they have the breadth of personality to do that. And I think it really works, actually, that part of the film, because it is backed up. So that just felt like it was the most obvious place that this narrative could evolve, was to give Princess Jasmine a voice, and that she could back that voice up.
I think we have time for one more question. I want to make sure I get someone from the back again.
Just getting warmed up.
Really? Oh, I see someone waving their hand. That person, I'm waving back to you, please. In the 7th row, I think. I'm just making up numbers.
I just wanted to talk, because the songs and the music was so great, but also the dance in this was unbelievable. A very Bollywood vibe. I just loved it. So Mena, I wanted to ask you about, sort of all the moves you made in this, working with the little guy over there.
Yeah, Jamal Sims, our choreographer, and Nikki Anderson were spectacular. Jamal's one of the best in the business, and I grew up watching Step Up, which to me was like the dance film of my generation. And Jamal choreographed that film.
The 12-year-old Step Up is the one.
That was the one. So it was amazing getting to work with him. Me and Naomi, funny enough, we wanted to focus more on the connection in that piece because getting the choreography down is one thing, but we wanted to focus on connecting. And then the other part of it, me and Guy had a fun time during that because I had to learn that choreography at the beginning, but then pretend like the genie was manipulating me. So we tried doing it with mine, and then Guy actually had this brilliant idea to actually attach these long puppeteering arms onto me and physically manipulate me. So we had a lot of fun with that piece. It was definitely a fun part of the whole process.
It's a bit of a shame we feel as though Jamal should actually be sitting up here.
I know, right? Yeah.
Because in no small part, Jamal had... Jamal actually is the prince, to those that have seen it. Seen the movie that the genie concocts on the rocks there. I just want to go home, man. But he was a major, my golly, I tell you, if anyone represented this, the spirit of this film, it was Jamal. Because Jamal came 100% into this project. And every time you'd see him, he was just so excited about what he was about to do. And the English weather didn't drag him down. And he just remained so positive throughout. When anyone asks me what my favourite scene is, I do say that my memory is that of a goldfish. So I always say the last scene, because it's the last thing I can remember. And Jamal came up with this dance sequence at the end, which, you know, I sniggered when I thought, you know, there's no one to cut. And he didn't have long to do it, by the way. And then that dance sequence.
And I gotta say something about Nicky Anderson, who's his assistant choreographer. He found him on YouTube. He's like 19 years old, and he is the most incredible dancer I've ever seen. So shout out to both of those guys.
Yeah, Nicky was in charge with,
Yeah, I worked closely with Nicky, and Jamal oversaw everything, but both incredibly talented people.
Oh, the dances as well. They're just amazing. Oh.
Yeah, the dance, what was happening with choreography, and I don't know if you knew it was going to be that, but choreography was sort of the vortex. Yeah, it was sort of the vortex of everything, right? So, if you're doing a dance sequence, so the choreography was the vortex of wardrobe, of set design, also all of the actors, we had decided how our performance was and things our characters wouldn't do, and then had to get worked into the dancing of it, and just everything sort of fell on Jamal to make it all come together in a dance sequence, and he just captured all of that stuff. Even the things like in the big sequence where I switch into the woman and then go behind and timing those things out, and it was just I wish he was here because he get all of these props, but he really captured the center of all of those things and made it turn into something that looks hot in a dance movie.
I love how you snuck in a question.
Security. Sir, you're going to need to take that question back. You're going to need to take it back. Now, what was really great for me in terms of that is because the Genie, and a lot of people don't even recognize this, but the Genie is 100% CGI. People look at it and they think it's my face blue and it's my body. The Genie is 100% CGI. There's none of me in the Genie, right? So it's like the work was so good that they don't even get credit for it. But what happened was great for that. For me, I would just be on set, so we run the scenes and everything, and I could do it on set, so I would improv on set because I knew it wouldn't be necessarily in the movie. Then we would do the first round of the CGI work, and then we could go again and we could work it. Then Guy watched the whole movie, and then I had another chance to go back and we could play with lines and make adjustments because they were going to create it anyway. So, for me, there was, tons of improv, and we got to the point where Guy was open and anybody could throw something in and we were throwing it in and it would become a fun thing on set to you know, try to find that number one answer. But it was a yes. I could have just said yes.
Wait, someone else goes to the end.
I just noticed that. I could have just said yes.
I did want to know really quickly, speaking of dancing, on or off camera, who had the best moves?
Ooh,
That would be me.
That would be it.
What is
Guy, duh.
Yeah, obviously. You know, yeah, I think it wasn't you, Guy. No, I think Naomi has the most skills.
Yeah, Naomi learns choreography. She learns it as fast as those dancers. She's like watching it, she's like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I've never been able to do that.
In an American accent.
And she's one of those that stands and looks, and you've seen dancers do it. I know we've all seen it, and you like, there's no way they're learning it. And she's like, tap, 6, 7, 8.
I'm just a wannabe dancer.
And like doing all that stuff, and then does it back. What the hell?
I have to spend like 3 weeks learning this
Yeah,
stuff.
like me too.
I know, but there's a lot of enthusiasm over there.
Yeah.
That's really what she wants to be.
Yeah, I'm just a wannabe. I would like hang out with it, like try and hang out with the dancers. I was just
It
like,
worked.
hey guys.
It worked,
They were like, oh my gosh, go away. No, they were lovely. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. They were really nice.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Please